Well, here we are. It is Fridays. Bring it in with me and Coach Thorpe. How are you, Coach?
We're good, but I want you to say your name.
I'm Jarod Hector. You guys don't know now. I mean, I don't know. Where have you been?
Branding. I know your name. It's all about branding, Jarod. We're good. You and I were just talking before we started on what we witnessed last night. Did you stay up for the second game?
I did. I stayed up for the second game, and I watched some possessions again this morning. This too, Coach. Staying up for these late games, man. I'm like, God, I just want to go to sleep. Like, can we just start running clocks or something so we can make this thing happen quicker?
I mean, I'm a late night guy anyway, but I've definitely noticed once I passed like 54, which is only 2 years ago, the 1 o'clock and the game's still going on. It wasn't as easy as it used to be. And so now, and my family's gone for the weekend, and I got like a 5-minute, like close my eyes. I don't know if I slept or not, maybe around 6:30. And I mean, I was up to 2. I'm like, that's all I needed. I was good. Plus the game was good. The second game was a fun game.
It was an excellent game. And, the title of today's show is You Can't Hide in the Playoffs. And we're really everything we talk about today is going to be about the magnitude of the playoffs and how, I said this on another pod the other day, this is like when CSI is looking for DNA evidence and they shine that super crazy light that can see everything. That's what the playoffs does to you, right? It exposes literally everything about your team, your game, your coaching philosophy. It puts it all to bear. And, when if you have weaknesses and things that aren't good, well, we're just going to capitalize on them. And that's what we're seeing right now. Another part about the playoffs we're seeing right now is youth is also being exposed in the playoffs. Judy, you can start that video.
Youth is being served in the NBA playoffs. Trae Young, Devin Booker, and DeAndre Ayton were dominant in their first playoff series and are all 24 and younger. This is the second taste of the playoffs for all-world phenom Luka Doncic and 6'10" sniper Michael Porter Jr., both 22. Donovan Mitchell and Nikola Jokic are no strangers to the playoffs. The scoring guard and presumptive league MVP are 24 and 26 respectively and were the best players on the floor in their first-round series. We didn't mention 21-year-old budding superstar John Morant, who led the third youngest team in the league to the playoffs. What's up with all these fresh young faces and starring in supporting roles on the big stage? This is the reality of sports. The heroes of yesterday can't remain heroes forever. In a hyper-competitive league full of super skilled and talented men all competing for one prize, only the strong and healthy survive. It's Darwinian. Survival of the fittest has never been more apropos than this season. The NBA had the shortest offseason ever. We are still in a pandemic, and the powers that be compressed 72 games into roughly 20 weeks. You know what helps combat these insane conditions? Youth. The players starring or playing key supporting roles right now are all pre-prime or just entering their prime. Yes, there are a group of super duper stars in Brooklyn over the age of 30, but they will be the exception to the rule. This feels like a changing of the guard, though the old guard won't relinquish their spot so easily. But maybe they, and the teams that employ them, should take a look at the ages of these new heroes and take stock. The upcoming class of restricted free agents include names like Lonzo Ball, Lauri Markkanen, Jarrod Allen, Malik Monk, and John Collins. What do they all have in common? They're 24 and younger, and they've shown they can play in this league. Teams with money, gumption, and infrastructure could make plays for these young guys that can be key supporting players or heroes in the drama of the playoffs for years to come.
Coach, whenever you're watching sports, and obviously being a little bit older, you've watched it for longer than me. Every time we see our heroes age out of the league, it just reminds us of how old we're getting, right? And so you're saying, oh, another class is gone, new crew is coming in, and that's where we are right now in these playoffs. Yes, of course, the current generation of 30-somethings, as I said, will not just meekly hand over the throne, but we're seeing these young kids showing up and saying, as you say, when you're playing pickup, we got next, right? So it's kind of cool.
This is every year as a coach, your new people are coming in. They're all the same age, no matter whether you're coaching high school or, for me, for pros for a long time when I was doing a lot of pre-draft work. Maybe they're always between 19 and 22 at the latest because they were just graduating college, and I just kept aging up and aging up and aging up, and so your references constantly have to change. Like, I can't use references from the 2010s.
Right.
a lot of these kids don't know literally don't know high-level scores from like 2010, 2011, 2009. So you got to keep it updated, which I actually find that refreshing. It was easier for me having teenagers anyway. But yeah, I needed to, yeah. I think I've told the story once before, I'm sure. But when I first started coaching in my 20s, I never believed I needed to be a coach that had to demonstrate. My job was use my voice to do that. I'm one of those guys that doesn't think I had to show it. And maybe because I couldn't go up and dunk the way I could dunk a volleyball when I was 22. It wasn't happening when I was 25. And none of them were impressed with a volleyball dunk anyway. But I could be on the court with them and mix it up and maybe show a screen. But I mean, the last 10 years, I've literally had to tell my players, if you run into me, I'm going to fall apart like Mr. Potato Head. My eyebrows are going to come off, my arms like that. That is a real feeling I had. And so it's but I think your point is great. I loved how you said it's Darwinian. I thought the image you showed of LeBron crumpled on the ground, but he looked like my 2-year-olds holding their ankle, waiting for mom to put a Band-Aid on. And this is not a soft man. So yeah, youth is served. And I think to the larger point, coaches too often have been so afraid to play their young guys. And I think it's been at their peril. I think they've made a mistake. Old players screw up too, all the time. The game is about mistakes. And so I like that it's not just the superstars. It's just role players who are making athletic plays. And but we're also seeing some young superstars grow too. And I know we'll talk about that.
We sure are. So let's kick it off. I know you saw something with Pat Riley and the Miami Heat that you wanted to discuss.
Really, I wanted to get your opinion. I thought it was interesting that Riley got fined for basically saying, hey, he was Motel 6. I'm gonna leave the key under the door for LeBron in case he wants to come back. And he got fined for that, which I understand. It is something I've thought about. Where, for whatever reason, if it's just not going to happen in LA, does he try to go to Miami where he trusts that culture also? I don't think it was smart by Riley to do. I don't think you should do it publicly either.
I mean, these GMs and these owners, they know, like, anytime you say stuff like, and it's especially now in this culture, it's going to get aggregated by 25 million other sites and be all over NBA Twitter, and Adam will see it, and the fine's coming, right? Like, it's just, my thing is like, why bother? What I'm interested in is when LeBron hears this after this season. I'm sure you saw some of the stuff, maybe you didn't. He posted on Instagram where it was like, count me out if you want to, like all this stuff about like, and it's like, look, dude, you're getting older. It happens. I'm wondering if he, in his private moments, is second guessing the durability of his co-star in Anthony Davis. And he's like, man, this guy is supposed to extend my late prime and be the guy and take over, and then I can play sort of the second fiddle, but he can't stay healthy either. I'm wondering if he's thinking about that, and then would that be any kind of lead to him going somewhere else? Although, what is he re-up for? 3 more years? I want to say 2.
I don't even know. I think you're exactly right, though. I think it's about AD, and what is he's got to have that running mate, right? I want to quickly, for anyone that's listening that isn't an NBA expert, most of the people who listen to us are super smart because they listen to and follow really smart reading and writing all the time. So you titled this, You Can't Hide in the Playoffs. It's a genius title because that's what you described it perfectly, although I've never seen CSI, not 1 second of it. I know about this. I guess there's a lot of them now.
Yeah.
But like all teams do now is focus on one opponent and themselves. Whereas during the season, there's just always another game coming. To your point also, and this year it was like tomorrow, right? There was just almost no time. So you didn't really get that magnifying glass with the bright light to really focus, in part because you just can't cram that much adjustment into a player's brain and expect them to play well and then have it change all the time. So you kind of come up with a process that works, generally speaking, and then you tweak it here and there. The playoffs is different. And there's no tomorrow after 4 losses, right? So yes, you can't hide in the playoffs. That's exactly right. Giannis can't shoot, and it's coming out to bite him badly, right? Same as free throws. Certain guys that struggle on the ball are being exposed on the ball. Your guy, MPJ, who's really improved on the ball, has not had a great series so far off the ball. And my guess is Phoenix saw and they could take advantage of some things. And I'm not picking on him at all. On a number of things he's messing up on. He's not really messing up. He's just being exposed because everyone gets exposed. The action is really hard to guard. Basically, they're forcing him to make a decision. Do I help on someone like Ayton who can jump over the rim to 13 feet or close out on a shooter? And that instant decision, if he's not right on it, will the Suns take advantage of it? And they're picking on him for whatever reason. I don't know why it's him so much, but they're not doing it on the ball, which I think is interesting. Yeah. Whereas Luke Kennard is being attacked on the ball, Reggie Jackson being attacked on the ball, Seth Curry isn't being attacked on the ball as much as he should. I think and I think when we get down to the series, Judy, you'll see some of these links for these games. What I've been able to find is watching these games where these players are being taken advantage of. That's a product. During the regular season, it might just happen naturally. We're running this stuff no matter what. In the postseason, everything more or less is by design. Yep. Which takes us to, well, let's do a little Giannis talk, and then we'll talk Bucks Nets. Okay, what do you make of the whole free throw thing with Giannis?
So here's what's interesting. So he got called for one of the 10-second violations last night, and my comment was, well, it isn't like on all the other ones. He's doing it in less than 10 seconds. He's violating the rule every single time. It's just when you're choosing to call it. And Steve Javie, who's now a retired official, talked to the broadcast crew and said, what you want to do is be fair to the player. And if it's in the wind up point or whatever, and I'm like, well, that sounds like a gray area to me, right? When is it? Is it 10 seconds, the ball has to leave your fingertips? Or is it, if you're in your wind up at 10, it's okay? He was in his wind up at 13. So, I mean, that sounds to me like way bad news all the way around. And as you know, the NBA asked the Nets to not have the countdown clock on their Jumbotron. And I'm like, yeah, because you're embarrassing your referees who are not calling it every time as they should be. Like, to me, it's one of those things where if that's the rule, that's the rule. Either call it or don't call it. Like, don't selectively decide when you're going to do and not do. Either it is or it isn't.
I almost never disagree with you, and I don't disagree vehemently now, but I will say I liked what the NBA, Steve Javie, the former referee, talked about on air. What you don't want to do is call it, and it's not even been 10 seconds left. So there is some art to this science. Although if you put it on the clock, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. They have it for warm-up pitchers and stuff now, I think. So yeah, put it on the shot clock. They could do that and start it when the player gets the ball in his hands. Before I get into how absurd we're even having this conversation, because Giannis is taking so damn long to shoot the ball, I just think that the spirit of the rule is the story here. We don't want them to take 25 seconds because now they're just resting. Right. So I think that's the spirit, Jarod, is that we're trying to give the player the routine he wants so he can make as many free throws as possible. What Giannis should clue in is, I'm not making them, and I'm getting some violations, which maybe he's doing it on purpose, so I don't have to shoot him in the first place. It is a problem that we're having this conversation. The NBA is dealing with this, and their two-time MVP can't make a free throw and can't even shoot it within 10 seconds. That's jacked up. I teach players one dribble, let it fly. I have the most I've ever seen is 3. Some guys do 5, but I've never coached that with 5. The longer you take, if you watch golf at all, your muscles get tight. Yep. The whole idea is to be loose, right? Muscles perform better when they're in their natural state as opposed to tight, right? And he's not loose, right? When you airball a free throw, that's a tight muscle not working. I don't know if I've ever had a player airball a free throw in my life at any level, because my guys aren't shooting it tight, that's for sure. But he's got a broken free throw. I can fix it. You have to pay me a lot of money. I charge a lot of money to fix players' shots, but I know his agent, and they've chosen to ignore this glaring problem. Or Giannis just is stubborn. I don't know, but it's a problem for them.
I mean, you see it late in games, right? And the points you mentioned about having the clock in tennis, they also have the serve clock, right? That's right in front of your
right.
So it's nothing to make the player nervous. Like, you just know this is the time I have. Let me do what I have to do. Late in games, the star players who shoot great free throws seek out the contact and want to go to the line because they know, I'm going to make these. He's getting fouled, and he's like, his face is not excited. He's like, it's tense, and it's like, oh boy, here we go. Here's the adventure. And possession by possession, this totally matters. I know something else in the game also is something you want to talk about, which is the landing zone area on three-point shots. And I know this will be something that will be discussed by the competition committee in the offseason as to what is a natural follow-through motion on your jump shot versus what isn't. And you can talk about what you teach certain players. I know some guys, their natural flow is they kind of come forward a little bit, but some guys totally exaggerate it and come way, way, way too forward. So what did you see last night in the game?
Right. So in the particular play last night, the way Steve Javie explained it, again, he's the expert at the booth in Secaucus, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's with the NBA office in Secaucus watching these things. And his explanation was the rule is you can't slide your foot underneath the landing zone. That's a flagrant foul. The play in question last night, and I don't remember which team was which and who did it, doesn't matter. The player started defensively with his foot in the landing zone and didn't remove it. It was clear as day to me. That doesn't mean that they saw it, A, B, and maybe they did see it, but that's legal. So in other words, your foot's already there, they can leave it there, which is weird to me. We're trying to protect our players. I like that. I do think they have to clean that up. And your point is right. I teach straight up, straight down like a rocket ship. That's exactly how I teach it in my gym. But some guys teach, they call it the swing and sway. I think it's fucking ridiculous. But some guys do have a natural, the way they're being taught by their coaches, they swing their legs forward some and lean backwards. It's mind-boggling to me that you would teach that. But they do. And it works for some guys. My argument is it would work better if they shot it the right way, but that's a separate thing. So you just have to, as a referee, it's not hard to keep track of who does what. You're right. Some guys go out of the way. And in my opinion, that should be a violation, if not worse.
I agree.
Because they're risking their own injury and potentially the defender trying to draw a foul. And I don't like that very much. But I just wanted to be clear and be on the record that I'm contending that if a player contests a shot and leaves his foot underneath the landing zone of the shooter and doesn't pull it out, that to me is just as egregious. You know what you're doing. You know you have to let them land cleanly. When we are coaching players in gyms where we're working on contests, we say to them, contest and then move away. We don't want to hurt our own player. It's the same spirit, right? You don't want to hurt the opponent because that's a flagrant foul. Mm-hmm. So clean it up no matter what, and then I'm fine with it. All right, let's get into what was as Jeff Van Gundy described it, a rock fight. Let's talk about the rock fight from last night.
It was quite a muddy game, and I know Drew Holiday talked about at the end. The Nets shot uncharacteristically poorly from the field. Throughout the playoffs, they're a 50, 40, 90 team in terms of percentages.
Are they really?
Yeah, as a squad, they're shooting 50. And that only dropped them to 49, whatever. Right? So, and to me, maybe 5% of that was the Bucks defense. Maybe 5. The rest, they were just missing shots they normally make. Joe Harris is 1 of 11. I may have counted 7 wide open shots. I'm like, bro, what are you doing? And it happens, right? You know, the old adage, to make miss leagues. Sometimes you just miss. Durant was 2 of something awful in the first half, 9 of 18 in the second half. Right? So it's just, that tells me, oh, it wasn't their defense so much. You just missed shots, right? And with all that being said, the missed shots, as physical as they were playing, the fact that it was a 1-possession game late, if you're Milwaukee, okay, you got some spirit breathed into you, I guess, but I wouldn't be feeling too comfortable. I look at this going, damn, they shot terribly, and we barely escaped and won this game. That would be concerning if I were a Milwaukee Bucks person.
Judy, leave that there. That's perfect timing for me. So here's my concerns. We published this week that the Bucks in their first 2 games in this series, they threw a total of 416 passes, which is 208 per game. The Brooklyn Nets, the ISO Kings, even though Harden played only 1 minute of game 1, with Kyrie and Durant, and fairly so as ISO guys with those 2 incredible players, they had thrown 600 passes or 300 per game. Last night, the Bucks decided, you know what, we're passing it too much. And they only threw 196. Although, to be fair, this is what we're showing right now on the screen is not a pace-adjusted total. It's the raw total. So I don't know. I didn't look up to see what their per 100 possessions total would be. but I don't care. That was my point.
It's not high.
Yeah, it's not even close to what they should have been doing. Make the Nets move around. I'll show you some video when we talk about Phoenix and what they're doing to Denver. If you watch Utah, even the Clippers are running good stuff. They're not just ISO all the time. I wrote last night, I tweeted, it was Henry said something to me this morning, Jarod. He said, David, you're a very nice man, which I really enjoy that you feel that way. I'm glad. I want to be a nice man. He said, you were angry last night. I was. At 30 to, I think it was 30 to 13, maybe it was 30 to 15. I tweeted out, like, count me as someone not impressed with what I'm seeing from Milwaukee. Now, did I know they were only going to score 56 points the rest of the game? No. But I saw something I didn't like. And that's why I wrote what I wrote. They were just, nothing had changed. They were still this garbage offense and playing like garbage. They just had a hot start. At the same time, I completely agree with you that it wasn't the Nets offense just missed shots. That's not to say you gave it 5%. You're probably exactly right. Milwaukee might have dictated to some degree, we want you taking these shots. Maybe. I'm not sure I agree with them. It worked. I mean, but any Durant shot to me is a bad shot for the other team.
Right.
Don't let that dude shoot. I thought Joe Harris, 1 of 11, come on. Like, wide open almost all the time. The Nets should have won by 30 points. I don't think they felt pressure. I've said this publicly, that let's see how the Nets respond when they're down. Well, we saw them responding. They didn't shoot better. They played better. They made a competitive game when it should not have been competitive. The Jazz or the Clippers destroyed the Nets last night. The way the Nets played. Now, they might have played much better. They might be playing with their food, Jarod. They're so much better than the way Milwaukee's playing right now.
With their food, I love it.
I didn't see the force that I needed from them. Drew Holiday said that he thinks, the team is mucking it up. I didn't see any mucking it up of anything. I saw wide open Nets dudes due to a good shooter's miss. Now, if you look at from the other point of view, Jarod, Brown played really well and hit little floaters in their pick and roll game. He really exposed Brook Lopez on defense for quite a while. Yeah. And he played great, and they still lost. So I look at it as the reality is the Nets are probably going to crush them in game 4. But these games aren't scripted. It's absolutely possible the Nets shoot badly again. It's also possible that they shoot okay and the Bucks shoot great. They did score 140-something against the Spurs. They did wipe out a solid Miami Heat defensive team at least once, if not twice, because they were really cooked on offense. I just don't see they have trouble. They take Forbes out of the game. He played 14 and 15 minutes in games 1 and 3, or maybe it was 2 games where he played less than 15 minutes or 15 minutes because he shot poorly, right? When he's shooting well, they can put him in. When he's not shooting well, he can't guard that team.
The Nets put him in action every time he's on the floor.
Yeah, so that's to your title. That's can't hide in the playoffs, right? He's one of the guys you can't hide. So I don't love Giannis taking, was it 7 threes or 8?
8 threes.
I mean, it's 8. I used to always tell my team, including my son, like, just punt the ball. Like, if that's gonna be your possession, just punt it to the other team. I used to say in football too, where it makes more sense. In basketball, punting is literally giving the ball up, but that's what they're doing when he shoots a 3.
And the Nets will be happy to let Giannis shoot 3s, but also, again, to me, it's a subtle thing. So everybody looked back at that 2-game series in the regular season when the Bucks won and Giannis scored like 40 and was hitting his 3s. But if you look at one, DeAndre Jordan was the defender on him, and he didn't come out to late contest. He let him walk up into it and shoot. If you watch what Blake's doing, Blake is giving him the 3, but he's doing a late run out and contest, right? He's forcing Giannis to think, is Blake going to come up? Is it because I'm going to drive right by him? So Blake's doing this cat and mouse game with him. And again, someone who's not a good shooter, the last thing they need in their mind is more things to think about, right? Because that's not going to help your whole process. And he's not, and the Nets will take that. You made 1, great. You missed 7. Perfect for us. We'll take that every single time. And also, when Giannis wanted to go attack the rim, as he did early in the first quarter, the Nets made a subtle adjustment, I thought, which was the wall was too deep. So they started pushing out a little bit further and again, forcing him into more of those jumpers. If Giannis is shooting a jumper, I don't care where it is. That is a win for you on defense because he needs to realize I'm more like Joel Embiid and Shaq than I am Kevin Durant or one of these wing creators because he's not that.
For sure he's not. And so this is the question is, can he make a living making 14-foot paint jumpers in a series, right? That's what they want him to do. If he can, well, now we have a series, unless they just can't guard the Nets on offense, which is certainly possible. But at least the Bucks can score. But they scored 80-something points last night. Chris Middleton and Giannis. I was upset with the Nets on defense for that reason. I love that you pointed out Blake, though. Henry tweeted something out about Blake. I did not root for that guy. I have no problem rooting for Blake Griffin. I tell you that. I think I thought he's one of the most underrated players that I remember since I've been covering the league since 2007. He just was unlucky in a terrible franchise for a long time. He's incredible player. And he's got such heart for a guy that used to be so talented. So taking the extra step that you're describing is brilliant by him. But I really wanted to wave my arms and say, guys, there's just two guys you have to guard here.
Right.
If you're going to lose, make someone else beat you besides Chris and Giannis.
Right.
Don't guard them and see what happens. They might in game 4. They might just leave everyone else wide open and see what they do.
Yeah. I think the last one on this Nets Bucks series to kind of tie into Giannis' theme about playoffs expose you. Bud is clearly getting exposed yet again. They pushed all their chips into the table for a point guard who can initiate offense, who's better than Eric Bledsoe in every conceivable measure, which Holiday is. But if you look at his advanced numbers, he's doing the exact same thing Eric Bledsoe was doing in the last 2 playoff rounds. And my thing is, if you have Drew here, let him initiate the offense. Let Giannis set the screens, roll to the rim. Listen, I ain't no basketball genius, but even I see that. Oh, they can't defend that. Why don't you try that a couple times? But for whatever reason, and that leads me to believe that Giannis thinks that, no, this is what I have to do, that this is my role. And it's like, bro, you're not Kevin Durant. You are Joel Embiid. Do that thing better. You're way better at that. But we'll see what happens in game 4.
I'm not ready to leave this topic yet, this game series yet. I want to talk about KD. And I know you're going to talk about him later, but I want to talk about it right now. Is he the best run stopper ever? Not that he was last night, but if I was coaching him, and I think, and so hear me out on this, because I don't have to go into his talent. His mindset is also the best ever because he isn't over there pitching a fit where he doesn't touch the ball every few possessions like a lot of scorers are. He's just got this, like he's the brilliant jazz musician that could play anywhere. He doesn't need the limelight. Giannis does. LeBron does. Durant doesn't. He can turn it on anytime he wants. 9 of 18 in the second half is just okay for him, by the way. He might go 14 of 18 the next game. You cannot guard him. He can get you can double LeBron. You can double lots of guys. You can't even double him. He still can shoot over you at 7 feet with the way he releases, the way he can lean back.
And he can back.
And of course, he's want to make the right play. Right. So if I'm Steve Nash, and I think game 4 is important for them because it ends the series almost for sure, unless there's someone gets hurt afterwards. So you got to win game 4. Otherwise, we really do have a series. So I would just have a 6-point rule. If I would have an assistant coach say, anytime the other team's on a 6-0 run, the only thing we have to do is make sure Durant gets a touch before anyone shoots. If he doesn't get a touch, I'm calling timeout and I'm taking that fucker out. He doesn't have to shoot it. I'd like him to shoot it because you just can't get a run against that dude. It was weird. No one was getting a run last night. Actually, in both games, second half, it was a slog. It was just the second half was a prettier slog because the teams were playing better.
But particularly in that fourth quarter, right? Like there was that period where Durant and Middleton just went back and forth trading buckets, right? And then Middleton missed and Durant hit 3. And I'm like, that was your point as a run stopper. You don't run anything complicated. A simple pin down, like it's you don't even dribble that much. You can just catch and shoot, like really easy. And he rises up. And more often than not, as you said, that's always a good shot for me. Any shot he takes, always good. I'm in on that.
Yeah, I think he's just an extraordinary player. All right, hey, do you have an update on Harden and Green?
Yeah, so Harden and Green is progressing well. He's actually on the floor doing stuff. It's likely we see him in this series. I'll find out tomorrow if he'll play in game 4. I'd imagine it's more likely he'll play in game 5.
Yeah.
Harden Overton is progressing, and what that means to me is they haven't done the second round of imaging yet, and the Nets usually wait about 10 days. Today is 7 days since he left the game, right? So I can't imagine he gets a second imaging until Tuesday, which would be game 5.
Okay. All right. So what were your thoughts on the better of the 2 games last night?
I think that Donovan Mitchell is incredible. I think he's playing really excellent ball. I love Rudy Gobert getting his 3rd DPOI in the last 4 years. As I said this to you last week, the word that comes to mind when I think about Utah is discipline. They're just disciplined on both ends of the floor and get into their actions defensively and offensively extremely well. Now, it doesn't mean they score every time or they stop winning the team every time, but they're always doing what they're supposed to be doing every time. And the Clippers are not playing poorly. They're actually playing all right. Yeah, they got down big. They came back and took a lead late in that game. They're just executing on a different level right now. And it's masking something that I think matters to them, which is the absence of Mike Conley. But so far, it's working out well. And I'm wondering if the 7-game series the Clippers played against the Mavericks, which was tough, right? Is that going to, we were talking about the energy reserves, right? You only have so much in the tank. When it runs out, it runs out. Is that going to affect them later on in this series? But I'm loving what I'm seeing out of Utah. Did what they did, won their 2 games at home. I do think Clippers will play it well again back in LA, but I love what Utah's doing.
I think the energy thing is a really important point. The Clippers have not been great in fourth quarter. They're competing. In fact, they made a really big run yesterday. They went zone and fucked the Jazz up a little bit. Yep. It shouldn't, but it did. This is what you have to do. You have to change things up. Reggie Jackson was unbelievable last night, and they still lost. I think that I don't think Mike Conley's gonna. My guess is when I was watching the Jazz during the season, when Conley had a hammy issue, he was gonna be out 2 weeks. Well, it ain't gonna be 2 weeks for a while. I'm not sure we'll ever see Conley in this series, which is bad news for the Jazz. The good news is they only have to win now 2 of 5, and they're a really good team. And I think we're seeing a couple of things with Utah. Again, I watched every game they played this year because they were the contender I didn't know as well as the other contenders. I know them very well now. They are amorphous in a sense. So you talk about discipline. I get what you're saying. Of course, they just have a lot of weapons on both sides. It's easy to talk Donovan Mitchell, and let's be fair, you should be talking about Donovan Mitchell. It's fucking extraordinary. He's got Dwayne Wade. He's not as good as Dwayne Wade attacking. He ain't far from it, but he can shoot. Dwayne Wade can never shoot. Like Donovan Mitchell can really shoot. It's gorgeous looking too. It's no accident that he was 40% from 3. I don't know if he finished 40%, but most of the year he was 40%. I don't remember how he finished. But he's a great shooter, amazing right-hand downhill driver, amazing. He must have huge hands because he makes some finishes at the rim that's quite impressive, really, really impressive and surprising.
He can take contact at the rim and not get bumped off the ball.
Yeah, right. He's a powerful guy. Rudy Gobert is unbelievable. Maybe fans on the West Coast anyway, because no one on the East Coast probably watching but us, maybe fans are realizing what an incredible defensive player he is. He's out guarding like everyone on the perimeter. And sure, they score on him some. So it's not like you have to take them out. They don't. Right? We've seen big men play it off the floor, and not this cat. No, this guy. And this guy, I loved Pat Ewing. I love Pat Ewing for a lot of reasons. Partly, I love John Thompson. I love Georgetown. I'm just a couple years younger than Pat. I was in high school. He had a game against Ralph Sampson, 7'4" Ralph Sampson against Virginia on national TV. And my varsity team had a game. And I was very frustrated because I didn't think we had a VCR back then. I loved Pat Ewing. One thing I loved about Pat when I got older and he got to the NBA is he wasn't afraid to try to block your shot. And you might have dunked on you. So, like, this is a grown man's game or a grown woman's game. They don't care if you dunk on them. It's just part of the sport, right? And so that's how Rudy is. Rudy is going to guard Kawhi and PG and Reggie way out. And if you make him look bad, whatever, he's going to block your shot too and affect a lot of shots. So, but they also have Bogdanovich, who plays bully ball on offense. Going into the series, I spoke to someone who looked it up because I thought I remembered him guarding the Clipper wings well. And he does. He bothers. He's a big dude. He's a big, strong guy, 6'9". He can move his feet. He's a true small forward. So it's just not easy to score on them because they have Rudy and these other guys. Clarkson had some really, really good moments, and that helps. Neither team played great. They played good. I wouldn't be surprised at all to be 2-2 after 4, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's 3-1 either. The Jazz are a very good team. If they have Conley, they're the best team. But if they have Conley and Harden is with the Nets, they're the two best teams. I'm in part because I'm just so disappointed in the East. But the Nets are what they are. They're loaded with talent. I actually am very impressed with Steve Nash. That's a whole other thing. I like what I'm seeing from the Nets. I love what I'm seeing from Utah. I like what I'm seeing from the Clippers. The Clippers are playing well. They're not paper tigers. They've fought. They were getting blown out, and they took a lead on the road. Utah's the best home team this year by far. So I think that Ty Lue made the change to zone. It didn't win the game. It's definitely going to make something that the Utah is going to have to work at. Normally, and they're shooting it well, Utah. The other thing to look at is, I think Utah only took 32 threes, maybe. Someone could look it up. They took 50 in game one. I thought that's what they would do every game, but they realized that when Zubac goes out, there's no one to protect the rim at all, so they're attacking more. But I also think the Clippers did a better job defensively, which is something that they know Utah wants to shoot 53s, and they guarded them better. So these are two really good teams. These teams could be champions. I really think that.
I think the Clippers, they found something in that 7-game series win against the Mavericks. I think we talk about, Coach, where there's a metric that I don't know what that means when a team galvanizes and figures some things out. There's no measurement for that, but there's something that coalesces amongst them. It's like, oh no, we're okay. The only thing that it's not even concern. It's more so just the mindset. Paul George, dude, you're so excellent at ball. And that's the thing. Twitter's got jokes and are always waving to the side of the backboard, all that shit. He's so fucking good at basketball.
Yes.
Dude, just lock in and focus on the things you do extremely well, and don't worry about what someone's going to ask you after the game. None of that shit matters.
He was good though, Jarod. I think he had 29 last night, or 20, maybe he had 27. And Reggie had 29. Amazing at Reggie Jackson. Yeah. I remember watching Reggie Jackson his first year, or maybe his second year with OKC.
Yeah.
Right.
But he was starting.
But he was coming off the bench at first, and I want to say that might even play Ty Lue ahead of him at first, and if I remember right. And I just remember thinking, what are they doing? No one can guard Reggie Jackson. He was one of the best one-on-one players I ever saw for his age. He didn't do anything else, but one-on-one, he smoked people, and he's made a lot of money in his career. One last thing I want to finish again on Donovan Mitchell, because we're really seeing a superstar grow up, and we saw Trae Young a little bit in New York. Let's keep seeing that, but we'll see if he keeps doing. But Donovan keeps doing this. Yeah. Donovan did this as a rookie.
Yep.
Okay, he ain't a rookie anymore. He's a max player, and he can really carry a team. And he was really competitive last night. I don't know how hurt he is. He said he's fine after the game. He got hurt late in the game, but this dude's MVP of the finals. Good.
Is he their best player, or is Rudy their best player?
I think mentally speaking, for no question, Rudy's their best player. Because metrics look at both sides, right? If you want to have most valuable, I would still pick Rudy. But Jarod, the fact that you have to ask the question is the reason why they're number one seed.
Yes.
And we're not even talking about Mike Conley, who was a stellar player in this system. Conley wouldn't be that good everywhere else. But for that team, the way they play, the two-way player that he is, he's incredible. But this is why the Jazz are so good. They're 9 deep. They employ a system that best utilizes their talent. And we're not sure if it's Rudy or Donovan Mitchell. That's how good both those guys are, That's why they're so good.
Let's go to Sixers Hawks. Game 3 is tonight. I think in game 2, the Sixers found something. Clearly, the Embiid meniscus isn't that big of a deal. I don't understand. Still don't understand how, but okay. But you brought up a point that I think is fair and true. Again, playoffs. You can't hide. Why are we not attacking Seth Curry every time and involving him in action?
Yeah, Judy, where I have Young needs more freedom. The Hawks are not ISOing enough. Just let that run through, Judy. Trey, that's an Embiid play right there. Oh yeah, this is the Embiid stuff. So we can talk about that. Embiid is supposed to have this hurt meniscus. Meanwhile, he's killing it, right? Embiid is doing some amazing things with his agility, his nimbleness. This is a large man. Look at the shot here. The little Dirk, one leg, lean back, 12-footer bucket. Like he's got all of it on the bad meniscus. Here's Trey, one-on-one with Seth. It blows right by him and then makes the floater. Like that is just not so easy to do. And Trey, too often they're bringing a screener. So he's got 6'10" Ben Simmons. How tall is, I think Tabula is like 6'6", but he's super long. I thought he was 6'8". I think I may be wrong. But he's got 6'10" wingspan. These are very tall men. They're bringing screens, and so Trey's dealing with these giants. I'd rather see that. They don't want to put Seth Curry on it, but you can make that happen and then let him play downhill. Don't set a screen. Give him more freedom, and then I think he cooked them a little bit more. But the Embiid thing is, like, we didn't know a week ago if he was going to play in the series.
Yeah.
And he's been terrific. I don't know what'll happen going forward. Clearly he's in some pain, but it's pretty astonishing what he's doing.
So from what I understand is it's about pain management for him. But you can further tear the meniscus more, which will increase the pain, right? So, and I would imagine playing NBA playoff basketball increases the chances of the tear getting worse, right? That's what I would assume. But again, I'm no doctor. But I that's something that bears monitoring, because it isn't going to get better as the playoffs go on, right? Like he's only gonna have to deal with this more and more. And if the Hawks manage to stretch this series out, get another game, push to 6, that's an extra game he's got to play. And if, Brooklyn knocks this thing off and ends it in 5, the rest benefits them. The extra game hurts Philly. But I think Atlanta, the one that's going to hurt them, and it sucks, is the DeAndre Hunter injury.
Yeah.
It's just because he, of course, the defense we know, but he developed so much offensively, coach, like putting the ball on the ground and creating shots. I was like, who is this guy? Like, their future's bright, but it's a shame that happened in the playoffs.
I had forgotten this morning that I read the other day. Yeah, he's out for the postseason. That stinks. Judy, where I've got this is so much harder than it looks. This is Trae Young throwing a lob downhill, and he makes it look so easy.
Yeah.
And I promise you, so his drag and roll with Capella, and he just throws a perfect dime. It looks like it's. My son is playing with 5-7-footers now, and he has told me they practice lobs every day when they're practicing. And you think it's so easy against air. It is easy against nobody. But when you bring other defenders, it's just there's turnovers happen all the time. In game one, the Sixers pressed. I wrote about this the other day. We have this on video of my article the other day. Trae Young, Jarod, the end of the game. Trae Young threw a right-legged. He jumped from behind 3 of his right leg. Remember, he's a right-handed shooter. So normally when you do this kind of stuff, you jump off your opposite leg. He goes right leg, throws a lob to, I think, John Collins for the dunk in the end one. That kind of almost ended the game anyway. It's extraordinary play. Wow. So to your video at the beginning, when we talk about these young guys, they're not just young athletes. These are young, really talented players.
Yeah.
The Hawks, as I said, I think on our last show, like don't tell Atlanta they messed up. They got Cam Reddish. They have Trae Young. We haven't seen how good Cam Reddish can be yet. He's probably 21 right now.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I love about Trae that he's developed so much, Coach, he's reading the game so well. Like, I'm like, wow, like exactly, like you can see. Like sometimes I'll slow it down to quarter speed, and I'm like, oh, because I can't process it as fast as they can, so I have to go that slow. I'm like, I see what you're seeing now. That's why you're making that move. But the ability, like, that's something that guys take usually a long time to learn in this league. But Trae, the great ones pick it up pretty early, and Trae's getting to that level. I'm really impressed with what I'm seeing out of Atlanta. And I do think they'll find a way to take another game in Atlanta, I think, and push this. But Philly, they can guard, and they got Embiid, and he's a monster.
Well, but to your point earlier, you got to win to stay alive, but it's even more important in the sense that every other game, you don't know if Embiid's got anything left, right? It's the same thing with the Clippers Jazz that you mentioned. The most important part of winning the first 2 for Utah is it just means it's a longer series. And the Clippers aren't going to gain strength. Yeah, they were pressed much more than Utah. That's why Ty's playing more guys. I thought he kept the bench a little bit tighter last game, and we'll see next game. Also, Giannis, I think, played 43 minutes.
Yep.
That is not normal, which is not good for Milwaukee.
Yeah.
That's how desperate they were. They had to do it, I guess. And if they lose by 25, we'll know why in game 4.
You know, they just to finish up the point on them, that whole that's not how Milwaukee plays, right? That's you, as you know, as a coach. What happens in a game, as a coach, you know what's going to happen, generally speaking, because they practice it, right? If we don't practice this is an unknown situation. I have no idea how you're going to react. Well, we're seeing this is not how Milwaukee plays, and the results aren't looking so good. Yeah. Suns Nuggets. Yeah. I'm loving this series because, as I wrote in one of my videos, my True TV videos, the Suns have everything it takes to make the conference finals, and we're seeing it, right? Shot creation and making from Chris Paul and Devin Booker, 3-and-D on the wings from Bridges and Crowder, and a young big man who can defend, run the floor, and do all these amazing things. And we talk about the gas tank and the energy level. The Nuggets are the only team left that were in the Final Four last year in the bubble. And Jokic played just about every game this season. Again, you ain't gaining energy as time goes on. And they went in a long series against the Trailblazers, right? It's going to hit you at some point. And with the injury to Murray, you're feeling it. MPJ has got tightness in his back. I saw him running around the game, and I was like, you ever try to run with a tight back? Like, it's not good. You don't look good. So that's not helpful. And I just love the way Phoenix is playing right now. And if Ayton and Jokic are, let's put it this way, I was going to say draw, not quite a draw. If Jokic isn't dominating Ayton in that matchup, the Nuggets ain't winning that series. And he's not dominating that matchup right now.
I think that's a big part of the story is DeAndre Ayton's progress, right? I tweeted the other day, and Twitter is not a place to share an opinion if you're of the thin skin.
Yes.
My skin is not thin, so they can say whatever they want. But I tweeted that who's really excited about Ayton's development besides Phoenix fans, it should be Warriors fans. Big men tend to develop late. It's a hard game. Weissman's had way more obstacles than DeAndre Ayton had in his first year, but I didn't see this from Ayton for year 3. It's kind of like Bam Adebayo's growth. He's a monster, and he's Jokic is better against Embiid, I would think, because they're more creatures of the same mold, just gigantically skilled men. Ayton is an athlete, and he's huge.
Yeah.
It's another level of. I'm a big believer that quickness is the hardest thing to overcome, not strength. Quickness. You're not allowed to grab someone and they just blow by you. And I think Ayton is really quick for a guy his size. It's a problem. The Jokic is amazing, but he ain't that amazing. And I give Ayton a lot of credit. And then, so Judy, you can just play like the first clip of, let me see what I have here, of those 3 things I have for you. So Phoenix is not just playing ISO basketball. This is why you're saying they could win the conference. This is a little drag screen action here. And then what does Mikal Bridges do? He face cuts MPJ. No one thinks that's the threat, but that was it. Now here's a dribble handoff with Crowder. Watch what Chris Paul does here. So he fakes it. He throws it to Crowder. Crowder fakes, hands up to Chris Paul, shoots a 3. Simple. Same kind of, actually, you can play that one more time if you want. It doesn't matter. They're taking advantage of, so here's the handoff again. Yeah, let this run through. So that's just a nice little inbounds play. MPJ is laying off of him. They're really picking on MPJ more off the ball than on it. Here, they've been running this play a lot here. It's just kind of like an action with screens. Crowder shot fakes MPJ, who did the fine thing. He took him away from 3, make him take the side dribble 3. That's the harder one. And then the last one I have, Judy, is an Ayton play. This is a tough this looks like Amari here, where they feed Ayton. Oh, that was the Bridges play, where he just face cuts MPJ. The other one with Ayton, he makes a little floater in the lane. It's so hard. Big guys, it's not, Jokic is great at it. It's a hard play to make. It shows Ayton's development skill-wise, right? And so they're coming at you. The Clippers are George and Kawhi, and the Jazz are pick and rolls with Gobert and Mitchell. I think Phoenix is the more interesting one where you're not really sure where it's coming from besides Booker. But if you listen to these wired tracks during the games, Jarod, I heard Blake was checking out, and he was talking to Claxton, who's coming in for him. And hey, we got to load up early, and I didn't hear all of it, but he talked about loading up. So what they're doing is they're loading to an action or to a player, one or the other, right? Depending on what they're talking about. It's hard to do that against Booker because Chris Paul sees it, and there's actions to what they're running that counter whatever you're loading to Devin Booker, right? The Jazz do the same thing. This is why you have to throw more than 196 passes in a game. You've got to move away from the loading, right? Move away from the wall they're building. And so I think Phoenix went through a stretch where they just stopped guarding late in the year. And that was my concern. And then Chris Paul got hurt. He doesn't appear hurt anymore. They are back to playing good defense. Now they're playing an inferior opponent, which tells us why Terry Stotts got fired, because Portland got rolled in 6 after being tied at 2-2 against a very inferior Nuggets team because of their injuries. And MPJ's back is a huge issue. This is a brilliant offensive player who's become a solid defensive player. And yeah, you can't play without a back. You can't play.
No.
But I think Phoenix is very good.
Yeah, I'd originally said Suns in 6, but I think I'm moving that down to Suns in 5. I think Denver will get 1 at home, but I just like what I'm seeing out of Phoenix right now. There's something you mentioned about the multiple actions, and it's so, when you watch playoff basketball, I see it all the time. Of course, it's hard to stop any one player in isolation, right? Like, just because these are the best offensive players in the world. But at least if I'm the defender and I know I don't have to worry about any other action and it's just my man in front of me, that makes the job easier. It's only one thing I have to focus on. But if I have 75 other things going on, like, well, that's, lunch meat, right? Like, that's generally what happens with a lot of these teams. And that's what you're seeing Phoenix do. And I love what Phoenix is running. Monty Williams gets a lot of credit for that.
I thought he should have been coach of the year.
Yeah, he was excellent.
I mean, I don't know. What do I know? Thibodeau was great. But he did with the Knicks was amazing too. But to be a 2 seed in the West, I realized there were injuries to other people, but
they could have got the 1. They were fighting Utah until the last day.
Last game of the season. Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. Whatever. Thibodeau did great too. All right, so we're ranking our 8 playoff teams. I was just thinking about this last night. I was so upset with what I saw from Milwaukee. The truth is, I think the Nuggets are the worst team. What's interesting is you and I both ranked our top teams, and I have Jazz Nets in a tie right now. I don't know how you have it. You have Jazz 1, Nets 2. I'm sure it's splitting hairs. And if Harden was healthy and Conley was healthy, I don't know what I would do. You would probably have Nets 1. I'm not sure I wouldn't, because the Nets look pretty damn good and Harden's not playing. This is James Harden. Like, this is a bad boy. Like, he's better than Donovan Mitchell. Mm-hmm. So, and I think there's going to be him sitting isn't helping his game.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
There's a rust factor we should look at, but I've got Jazz, Nets, Clippers, Suns. You've got Jazz, Nets, Suns, Sixers, Clippers 5th. I don't have the Sixers as high as that because I just keep worrying about Embiid's knee. But I think that we both are down on, and I respect the Hawks.
Yeah,
they're just a year away.
Yeah,
this is great experience for them, right?
Yep. Oh, absolutely. You know what I said about the Grizzlies? Same thing. Go in the playoffs.
Yeah.
You need that. Like, we know all of these teams, the great dynasties over the years, they had to get their lumps, right? The Pistons in the 80s couldn't get past the Celtics. Like, you got to just deal with it. That's how you fortify and get better. That's why I think the Clippers winning that first round 7-game series after losing the 3-1 lead to the Nuggets last year, that helped them coalesce a bit. Again, I don't know how to measure that, but I think that matters some. The Bucks, I'm just disappointed in, right? As you are, because what are you guys even doing? I'm not sure. And the Nuggets are there just because of their injuries. If Murray was healthy, they would. That's not their fault.
They'd be a contender. If they were healthy, the Nuggets are right there with the Jazz and the Nets, in my opinion. I really believe that. All right, so I want to have time to get to your take. We're doing a parting shot at the end. So let me do mine first, and then you do yours, and I have a comment because I agree with you totally. So apparently, Jordan Clarkson for the Utah Jazz is most people don't know is Filipino American. And having NBA players that I've trained that have spent time in the Philippines, I'm half the NBA and had the greatest time ever. It doesn't matter what country you're going to in Asia. No player should be dealing with this. No community should be dealing with this. I guess there's a Filipino food truck, which sounds phenomenal. I wish we had one here. And someone, vandalized it and Clarkson spoke up right away. I think he helped repaint the food truck, did some things on the interior. And I call all of that Trumpism. Now, to me, the only gift Trump's really given us is he's given us a name to encompass bigotry, racism, ignorance, all of it together, instead of using different words for each one. Trumpism means all of it. Because even the person who vandalized it, I don't even know if they're truly bigoted against Asian Americans. They might just be Trumpers who just like to be stupid. Whatever. It captures the whole thing. My point is, kudos to Clarkson for speaking up. This is what we need more and more. Henry loves to talk about how silent most Hollywood superstars have been regarding the scandal with what's his name? Yeah, with Weinstein. These really famous people have kept their mouth shut. We don't need players keeping their mouth shut. They speak up right away on this fucking Trumpism every chance they get. All right, let's get to yours.
Absolutely. I love that, and kudos to Jordan Clarkson. Yeah. So as I started the day off of the video, youth is being played in the NBA, and Judy, you can play just show the article. Sam Anderson, who wrote the great book about Boomtown, wrote this great profile on Kevin Durant and possibly the greatest basketball team of all time. They're talking about the Brooklyn Nets and their talent. And I said in my video, the old guard won't give things up so easily. And as we're thinking about this generation, I think as good as Durant is and as good as people think he is, I don't think the basketball, I mean, we do, Coach, you and I, but I don't think the everyday NBA fan recognizes and understands how brilliant and how one of one and one of a kind this man is. He's already, in my estimation, and it's just a matter of adding more all NBAs and stuff to his resume. He's already a top 10 player all time, in my estimation, just based on what he's done and the talent he has. Zach Lowe said this recently. He is the greatest amplifier of superstar talent that ever existed. And it's because of what you said, Coach. He doesn't need the ball to dominate, right? Now, you can give him the ball, as the Nets did in the game, where he's running pick and roll and being the lead ball handler, and we see how that works. I can score when I want. I can get 10 assists if I want, right? You can run me off screens like Ray Allen. I can do pin downs. You can toss me into a one-legged fade away in the post like Dirk Nowitzki. I can do that too. And what he's doing also this season for the Nets, defensively and in the postseason particularly, he has his highest defensive rating that he's had in his postseason career, aside from 2012 when they went to the NBA Finals as 24-year-olds and young kids who didn't know shit about shit in Oklahoma City. This, again, and I think a lot of it gets, distracted and noisy around burner accounts and Twitter and all the silly things that happen away from basketball. But if we talk about strictly lacing them up on the court, there's nothing this man cannot do on a basketball court. And he actually said that in a Zach Lowe piece from a few years ago. He's like, yeah, if you put me in that system where I have the ball in my hands, like I'll average 32, 7, 5, and all the things. But then I have to also play defense and guard all these guys. And it's just too much to do. So I just do a little bit of everything, and whatever the team needs, that's what I do. That's what I do. Think about that. Someone as great as he is being like, I can just pretty much do whatever I need to do, right? Essentially, I can be the number 2 option on a team. I mean, you probably want me as 1, but I'm fine being a number 2. That's okay with you, right? And I just think that part of his brilliance is often understated. And I think when he's done and when his career's over, people will be like, damn, that was a real dude. Because you see it, right? Giannis tries to pretend he's Durant. He ain't that.
Not even close. They're not even in the same universe. Durant is, you have to look at it this way. Career accomplishment versus pure talent and production. He played a lot with Russell Westbrook for good and for bad. In terms of pure talent and production, I mean, I don't know if there's any question he's top 10, and he's probably top 5, top 6. I don't think you're wrong. He has 2 rings, and people look at that a little bit, and Steph Curry, whatever. He has nothing to apologize for. He's an extraordinary player on both ends, and I love his mindset. I think he's got some issues off the court. He does not have any issues on the court. He is a great teammate. He really is. But for what we see in games, the dude just wants to win, and it doesn't have to be about me. When you're the best player on the court, always, that is saying something. Every player should aspire to be how Kevin Durant is in a basketball game. I'm going to do my part, and I can come to all you want. I'm here, but I'm happy to be a team player too. You know, that's like Stevie Wonder being willing to be part of a barbershop quartet. You know what I mean? He's the best there is. He's cool with being just one of the guys if it helps the team win. I think you're totally right. He's amazing.
But that's what he is. He's a jazz musician, right? Oh, put me with any other four musicians.
He is. Yeah. He's amazing.
All right. Enjoy the playoffs this weekend, Coach. Have a good time. Enjoy the bachelor life for one more night or two. And we'll see you guys next week. Take care.